Happy Friday, this is Chris here, Woodsman Spirit Channel. Thanks for the questions you've given me on part 1 of the review of the Grohmann number 4 survival knife in carbon. And as promised, this is part 2 where I'll be doing some field test review on the same knife. So I'll just again just give you a quick view of the knife. And it was pretty sharp out of the box, but I've stropped it probably 20 times on each edge with some green paste. So yeah, it's pretty good now. Okay, so what I'm going to do is first and foremost address the issue that I mentioned with the sheath. I was sent this knife from Adventure Outdoors knife shop in Saskatchewan, and I dealt with Indiana Stapleton and his father Sean Stapleton, who have, as I mentioned, been extremely responsive and interested in what I aim to review this knife. I also mentioned to them that the knife sheath that I received the knife in wasn't the same one as advertised on their website, for which they apologised and asked me to identify the sheath, and the sheath wasn't readily identifiable on the Russell Grohmann website, although there was some numerical reference to it being called a new sheath. So I'll just show you that sheath. It's on my belt, so I can't yeah, so it was this sheath, an open typical kind of bushcraft sheath, but I wouldn't say I'm terribly disappointed, but my my thought on that kind of sheath for what is deemed to be a survival knife, and what has been used extensively as a survival knife over decades, as well as a popular knife on hunting expeditions here and overseas, is that it's not a terribly safe sheath to use. And I recall there was a military style survival knife sheath, and I asked Sean Stapleton if he could possibly send me one, and he kindly did, and thank you very much, Sean, I really appreciate that. So I'll show you the sheath here. So I mean, some of you may have seen this already. It's so this was the one issued on the military personnel. So it has a nice press stud flap on the top, which, for whatever reason, if this knife, particularly if you're like the parachute regiment, you use it if it's deployed on your belt as you're jumping, and if you're upside down, obviously there's a good chance your knife's going to drop out when it stretches on the kind of open neck sheath. I had heard from another fellow YouTuber whose opinion I respect, that he's a big fan of these knives, but he had an issue with this one particular rivet here, and the reason for that was that he said after a while of carrying it in the bush, the tip of the knife was rubbing against this brass rivet and took the edge off it. Now I can't speak from experience on that, but I may remove that rivet. I may even replace it with a copper rivet, which no way is going to harm 56 or 58 Rockwell carbon steel blades. So I might try that just to ensure the integrity of the sheath. But again, it's made of the same materials, made to a high standard, nice welt in there, has a Grohmann logo on there, as does the other one. And I'll drop the knife into it now. And it goes in nice and easily. There's no, you don't have to push it in, because it does depend, even though at the moment it doesn't drop out. In time it will for sure stretch, as do all knife sheaths. But there you have the additional security You have this initial, the additional security of. Yeah, another point about the sheath, this typical kind of sheath, is this one actually, in actual fact, the loop ends perhaps about an inch below the top of the sheath, so it rides quite high on the belt. Now, in my experience, and some of it is based on, so in my experience, carrying a knife in this typical open top sheath, they do tend to, with this one it has a belt loop which is significantly below the top of the sheath. It's where my finger is there. It's not easy to see, but the point being, and this again depends on your body type, I'm 34 waist and I think 44 chest, so I mean, some of my friends are carrying far more weight around the midriff than I do. But the point being, particularly like if you're in a canoe and you squat over, the shape of the sheath is so close to the belt and to the hip that it pushes the top of the handle in close to your chest or your upper belly, which, if you're kneeling down in a boat, you can only really pull it out with your forefinger and your thumb, which is okay, that's maybe not too bad. But when you come to put this thing back in, what you've got to be careful of, particularly if you're on the move, is either cutting a hole in your hunting shirt or your fleece or whatever, or if you're not really looking what you're doing, or your belly's overhanging the top, you can end up taking a slice of bacon off your midriff, which I really wouldn't like to see that happen to anybody. So again, with a sheath that sits a bit lower on the belt, hangs a bit lower, when you come to withdraw the knife, you've got a little bit of movement there, so you can, it's standing away from your body a little bit further, so it's much easier, even with most of your hand, to pull it out, even with gloves on. Or you can pull it out with a lanyard, as long as you don't let it dangle and cut yourself. Right, and then once it's inside on this sheath, you just flip your flap over there and it's secured well. I mean, I may even extend that, because I like pucko knives, and I like the the movement a dangler sheath gives me. It gives you almost a rotation. It's probably easier if you wear a belt over your outer garment. Like I could put this belt on. This keeps the thing away from your body. Okay, see what we can do here. Just fasten her up tight. And I often, you've probably seen me, I often wear this big belt over an outer garment. Now, I mean, you can move your belt around a lot more because it's not fastened onto the loops on your trousers, on your pants. But there, see, that is much easier, way much easier to get in and out. And unless you've got a really loose top jacket on, this is a fairly big jacket. But if you haven't got a real baggy jacket on, you've got absolutely no risk of doing damage to your garment or your body. Okay, so that was just a brief opinion of mine on the design of sheaths for belt knives, and you've probably already seen my reviews of knives and my critique of handle shapes on a lot of knives not being the best they could be. Okay, anyway, enough of me gassing off. Let's give this knife some work. So what I'm using today is another new acquisition of mine. It's the Draper Expert Saw. I mean, I know a lot of people like Silkies, and Silkies, they're excellent saws, but a friend of mine on another YouTube channel, he's reviewed one of these and speaks highly of it. You know, the price is good. I think I paid about $30 Canadian for this, and I've never seen them more than about $48 or $50. It's much more, as you can see, the tooth pattern is much more like a traditional crosscut saw, but again it's still a pull tooth, very aggressive teeth, and got these slots in here for clearing away the sawdust. So I'm sawing some dry, I think it's spruce here, and probably 4 inches diameter. Let's just give this a go. Yeah, well, that cuts well. Okay, let's try and batten. God forgive me. Okay. Right. You see me there? Yep. That's good. Using a piece of very hard vine maple here. As with most of the wood on this property, it's pretty much riddled with knots. I'm not making an excuse for anything. Into split. Yes, begin to give way. There you go. So look at that. Yeah. Okay, let's try again. Yeah, so that works okay with the batoning. Let's see what it's like in shaving sticks. Make sure you can see what I'm doing here. Maybe not. Just get a little bit closer. Okay. Yeah, that's better. So I'm just getting used to this knife, which I've never used before, having a different handle and different blade shape to a lot of bushcraft knives. It's throwing decent curls off, but I want to try and make a continuous fuzz stick here if I can. Yeah, the gym pin's quite useful. Yeah, so it's coming, but again, you make do with what wood you have. The grain on this is a little bit wavy and knotty, but try not to make excuses here. Yeah, feather stick pretty good, more than adequate, but probably I'm more used to using my 4-inch bushcraft blades and just catch the angle of the blade, grind more easily than I do with this one, with it being a new knife. Let's try a different piece here. Seems a bit better. Something with a flat edge up on here. Yeah, it's a bit better. I'm making shavings, but I won't call them good fuzz sticks. Again. So let's just try and batten through a piece of this kindling. See how the edge retention is. Oh, chop straight through it. Pretty good. Let's give it some more. It's an 1.5 inches thick. Straight from the back. It's quite good when you have the round belly on the blade, because that helps it penetrate into the wood more easily. And this is a kind of a brutal chopping through of the wood. Yeah, see? Absolutely no perceptible damage to the blade. Takes bark off here pretty good. Let's just put that on there a bit. Yeah, that's okay. There's plenty of birch bark around here, so I'd probably use it for breaking off birch bark off rotting birch trees. One thing I didn't do and I should have done is fetch a fire stick. Sorry, for ferrocerium rod, fire steel. I'll test it and I'll report back if there's an issue with it for sure. So general just whittling of, you know, like sticks for pot holders or small tent pegs or whatever. Bring it a bit closer if I can. That's a bit better. Chest crutch. This wood isn't pretty, so even though it's soft wood, it doesn't necessarily mean to say it's going to cut easy. So I often say to people, you know, people say, oh well, you know, when you're splitting wood with an axe, you want to try it on some real hardwood, but if the hardwood's got straight grain, and particularly if it's sappy or frozen, it'll split far easier than knotty fir or knotty spruce for that matter. But yeah. But you know, bear in mind this is called a survival knife, so such it's not a designated bushcraft knife. But my question is it good enough? I don't want to. I'm just trying to pare down an end on a stake or something here. Yeah, it's okay with the stakes. Yep, that's okay. Chopping. I'm a big fan of chopping with knives. Knives are not major chopping tools, but yeah, it chops okay. Look, oh, you can utilise this string around your fingers so it doesn't fly away. The other thing is digging a point into something, eh? Let's see if we can bore a hole in here. Digging arrow tips out if you're an archer. It's one thing you might want to use it for. No, nothing at all there. Okay, so my initial feeling is the handle is, yes, very comfortable, but it's with this size blade, 5.5 inch, which is probably 1.5 inches over the typical bushcraft blade. You get a lot of leverage when you start cutting and slicing into stuff. So you begin to, you would like to benefit from maybe a more thickness at the front of the handle, but the back just stays feeling fine all the time. Battens, you have to take this with a pinch of salt, so I'm not a dude who does a lot of battening, but for sure it batten through that wood, and hopefully it'll get me out of a sticky situation with fire lighting. Certainly the steel seems good. The grind, the sabre grind, I like sabre grinds, and this is no exception. Even hacking and chopping as best I could on this wood and bark, it's not even made any kind of micro chips or certainly no folds or anything, so I would say it's good quality blade. One thing I can't demonstrate here today is kitchen preparation. It's I might do that when I'm doing supper tonight. I might use it to cut up some veggies and meat and stuff, depending on what we're having for supper. I think it'll do quite well with that, and based on my knowledge of knives that are usable for skinning game, then this will do a pretty good job. Well, they do a designated skinning knife, so you'd probably be better off buying the designated skinner. But as I say, it's a survival knife, so it's meant to be tough. It's meant to be a jack of all trades and maybe a master of none, maybe a master of one or two. So I think that's all I've got to say about this knife, really. I mean, I will come back to you at a later date once I've had more chance to use this. I always have a bit of an issue with field testing knives. See a guy like me just getting it fresh out of the sheath and using it on a certain piece of wood for 10 minutes. It's not a fair evaluation, really, but anyway, it gives you some idea if it's a knife you'd like to invest your money and your time into. So yeah, thanks for joining me today, and I look forward to seeing you on future videos. I will be doing a video on big knives soon, and the value of big knives as opposed to smaller bushcraft knives. I just want to conclude my video today with a shout out to another fellow YouTuber. His name's Andy, and his channel's called Rusty and the Woodsman. He's based in Scotland. He's been on the go a couple of years or more. He makes some excellent videos, some very original content. His camera work's also very good, and I really would like to see his channel grow. If anyone can check him out, I'd greatly appreciate it, and let's look forward to more good videos from Andy at Rusty and the Woodsman. Okay, thanks very much, guys. Talk to you later.